All right, we're back. I'm trying to adjust my audio so that it'll stop making that little sound periodically, but I can't seem to figure it out. I can't seem to troubleshoot it correctly. So I'm going to turn a knob. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. So I apologize in advance for any noise that's happening. All right, so let's talk about the approaches to job description. So this is an overview. This is not my comprehensive. I'm just letting you know what's coming in this topic. So we've got the job oriented approach. We've got the worker oriented approach. And we've got the hybrid method, which is the more recent development in job description. So job oriented is going to focus very much on the tasks that are performed in the job. Worker oriented is going to look at the qualities that the employee would need. And then the hybrid method is sort of looking at both what does the job demand and what do we want the employee to come with. So that's where we're going. So let's start with the job oriented techniques. Okay, under this category, there are a couple of options. The task inventory approach is where task statements are generated by SMEs. Okay, what's that? That is a subject matter expert. So in a lot of fields, that would probably be a supervisor, somebody who's already what we would call an incumbent. They're already in the job. And so they generate the task statements. Remember in the last video, I told you what tasks are. So they generate task statements of what the job entails. And then people who are in the job, no matter who wrote the task statements, people who are in the job, the incumbents, are going to rate the task statements on, how often do they actually perform those things. A lot of times if you leave it up to the supervisor to write down the task statements, they'll write down things that the incumbents in the job say, we never do that. Or they'll leave things off the list that they do every day. And so it's important to have incumbents look at the list and look at the tasks and see whether they really perform those or not. How important those tasks are, how critical those tasks are to their daily job. Maybe rated on a scale from do it daily, do it hourly, down to monthly or something like that. And then the relative time they spend on the job performing that task. So is this like 90% of my job I do this, or is it like 1%? How much time do I actually spend doing these tasks? So the incumbents give us a little bit of perspective about the relative importance of the tasks that were generated. So I thought it would be fun to kind of do a thought question. Would these be good task statements? Handles customer complaints. Is that a good task statement? Remember what tasks are, right? So tasks are like a combination of elements so handles customer complaints. Think about that one. How about types, files, and distributes correspondence? Is that a good task statement? Utilizes decision-making skills and abilities. Is that a good task statement? Maybe you could rank order the three of them in order of best example of a task statement to worst. I think I'll do that, and then I'll go ahead and give you the answer. Okay, so in my opinion, which, everybody has an opinion, so I'm not saying I'm right. Sorry, I went to the wrong thing there. I would say that the best task statement in this list is the types, files, and distributes correspondence, because it's really actually telling us almost elements within that task, right? So it's letting you know the details of what you would be doing in the correspondence chain. You'd be typing it, you'd be filing it, and you'd be distributing the correspondence. Handles customer complaints, I think I would put second, even though it's not a very good task statement, because at least it has customer complaint listed there. But what do you mean by handles? Just listens to it, or listens to it and is empowered to do something specific about it, or just escalates it to somebody who does have the power? Like, what do you mean by handles? That's not, and that's really that's the task in that statement, is handling. And so what do you mean by handle? Can I insert laughs at? I mean, what do you mean by handles? And so that's not right. That's not a very good one. And then utilizes decision-making skills and ability. I mean, honestly, that one's the worst on the list because of the vagueness of what do you mean by utilizes? What do you mean by utilizes? Every day I will be using. And then what do you mean by decision-making skills and abilities? That's pretty vague. Which decision-making skills? Am I going to be deciding between flipping the switch up or down today? Or am I going to be making decisions about whether we should spend money on this or that product? Like, what do you mean decision-making? Like, this is a wide range of things. Like, that's just too vague. So honestly, the only really good one is the types files and distributes correspondence. The other two are pretty bad. But if I had to rank order them, I probably would put customer complaints second and decision-making skills last. That's me. You can have had a different order. Job-oriented techniques, part 2, we will talk about functional job analysis. Okay, so we're still analyzing the job itself. And so this is still task, job-oriented. This is a highly structured approach. Industrial psychology loves a good structured approach. So in this functional job analysis, we obtain data about what a worker does and how the tasks are performed. The job relevant tasks are going to be rated on dimensions of data, people, and things. Okay, so the data will be obtained, depends on who's doing the functional job analysis. Maybe you obtain the data by actually watching. You might do an actual observation and watch the employees at work and see what they're doing and how they're doing it. On the other hand, you might elicit tasks from the employees themselves and ask them, what do you do and how do you do it? You might ask them rather than watching. That part doesn't really matter because you can do it either way. But the key thing is that you get that data, and then you as the IO psychologist would rate the tasks as data, people, or things tasks. And I've given you a couple of ideas of what data is and people are and things are. So in order to understand how the job works, we have to kind of understand how these different dimensions that could possibly be at the job are interacting with each other. So, data, you're handling information, ideas, and facts. People, you're trying to understand them, you're showing them courtesy, you're mentoring them. I mean, different things that can be people things. The things category would be, how strong or fast or coordinated or other kinds of capacities with regard to objects and things, right? So how much do these interact with each other? So like a person who's performing a job that is customer service and involves a lot of interaction with people, does it also have like a speed component to it? Am I supposed to be courteous and understanding, but also meet some kind of quota for how many customers I talk to in a day? Am I also supposed to handle a bunch of information and facts as I'm going through my customer service activities, right? So in functional job analysis, they're trying to figure out what is actually done by counting things. It's a highly structured, very quantitative, counting up what's happening and then looking for interactions among the different categories. So functional job analysis was used to develop the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. So my title of my slide is FJA leads to the DOT, because IO psychologists love initializations. So the Dictionary of Occupational Titles was created back in the 1930s by the Department of Labor. And using functional job analysis, they developed these entries into the Dictionary of Occupational Titles that all have these characteristics. There's a code for everything. There's an occupational title. There's an industry designation. There's a lead statement, which is trying to sort of encapsulate the overall job with following colon, so that then you can know that you're going to hear more of the task element statements, and then at the next paragraph, some of the may statements. May do this, may do that. This Dictionary of Occupational Titles is used to try and match people with jobs. So if you talk to a person who's looking for a career or career change, you can kind of look for those kinds of, you in your interviewing of that person, look for signs that they have certain kinds of tasks that they prefer doing, or skills that they have, and you try and match them up with a job. Using this procedure, they ended up with about 12,000 jobs in the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. Now, previously, I think in the last video, I mentioned that it's a simplification if you can combine jobs together, right? If we can make a job, a class of jobs, right, where we put a bunch of positions together and call it a job, it really simplifies things. So notice what the Dictionary of Occupational Titles lists here. It says faculty member, comma, college or university. So that implies that there are other kinds of faculty members that are in this DOT, and there are. There's faculty members, comma, elementary school, faculty member, comma, secondary school, right? So middle school or high school. Why? I mean, maybe we should lump these together if they actually are functionally very similar. And so the DOT is very cumbersome. I don't know how any job advising person between 1930 and like 1980 was able to go through this book and find jobs for people that they didn't already know about. Luckily, ONET came along, and ONET is short for the Occupational Information Network. And I gave you the hyperlink in case you're interested in. It's kind of illuminating to look at what's available because we don't know all the jobs that exist off the top of our heads. And so ONET is nice to look at. Functional Job Analysis also produced ONET, but with a mind towards maybe compiling as many of these similar jobs into one category. So the Department of Labor, again, ordered this to be done, and it has replaced the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. And it's reduced it from the 12,000 that had been in the DOT to about 950 that are in the ONET categories. And so they identify and describe the key components of many modern occupations. And it's based on data that was gathered mainly using functional job analysis, but a little bit of a hybrid approach. It's highly accessible, it's searchable, it's an online database, much easier to access. And you can kind of see you've got worker-oriented characteristics on the top, you've got job-oriented characteristics, which is where the FJA part comes in. You've got cross-occupational categories, you've got occupation-specific categories. And so, so this is really helpful for a person who maybe is trying to open their mind to alternative fields that they could enter. All right, let's criticize the job-oriented techniques. First off, they say you're too narrowly focused on tasks, but of course that's their whole purpose. So that's kind of like, well, I mean, obviously we liked that part or we wouldn't have been doing it like this, but that's the criticism. It's like, well, it's not useful to everybody because it does focus very narrowly on the tasks that are being performed. The other criticism, and we see that with the change between the DOT with 12,000 categories of jobs and then, ONET with less than 1,000, you may miss similarities in jobs due to the fact that, the task specificity is so high level. Like if it's even slightly different, we make it a different kind of task. And so that would make these jobs different. And so it makes it really super complicated to have that kind of process. So job-oriented techniques probably were a really good way to start. I mean, I don't think you could have gone directly to ONET without having had that experience with the 12,000 occupations that was in the DOT. Like, I don't know if you could have gone directly to the 1,000. It would have that's too big of a leap. But the fact that we went through the job-oriented technique and we got so much specificity in so many different careers, that gave the impetus for trying to do something that would maybe lump some of them together and allow us to see similarities between jobs. All right, so that's my defense of that. All right, let's go ahead and take a break here and we'll come back and talk about the worker-oriented techniques next.